I don't know, maybe it's just a vocabulary thing, but hey. Anyways, granted, the both of them are above the age of 18. Yes, is it weird that she's messing around with someone that is technically almost half her age? You could say so, but that's not even what I really want to talk about. Like that's the whole age thing with the adults and all, and I don't even consider that to be the biggest issue out of all of this. I think the fact that this woman is playing a full-on manipulation game on dude is the thing that bothers me quite a bit.
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. He's a man who also considers running his mouth to be a form of cardio. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. This is the Friday episode, and normally I'd have like an intro story, but I'm trying to redo the format of the entire episodes and shit, and that's like a bit of a different thing, but well, all in all, we're here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you listen all the way till the end of this full episode, since we got done with the much shorter, less edity ones, because I'm back from break, and it gives us a chance to do a couple of things. Although, considering that it is a Friday episode, the drill is still pretty much the same. I usually like to go on to X, or is it Twitter, and just pull up a couple of tweets, break them down a little bit, and it is one of those episodes where your input is highly appreciated. So if there is that tweet that you feel that we should probably discuss, if there is that tweet that you feel is pretty interesting, there's a drill on how you can send it to me, regardless of whether you found it on Facebook, IG, or on X, and I'm going to explain how that can be in a second. Because if you want to send it over, there is a drill on how to do it. It sounds pretty simple, almost sounds like a song, and it goes like this. You see that tweet, you like that tweet, you want us to discuss that tweet, you send that tweet. You send it to the DMs of @BagakaTheD, which happens to be my personal Twitter handle, and I will take it from there and I will handle it accordingly. On Facebook and on IG, if it happens to be a screenshot, a screen grab, or ended up on a reel, and you want it discussed and it was from Twitter, then the place to send it to is @TheBreakdown_podcast for IG and @TheBreakdown_podcast on Facebook, and I will take it from there and I will handle it accordingly. Now, I've got a couple of tweets that I want to get into, but before I can do that, I first wanted to talk about two things. First of all, the Breaktime Podcast was recently nominated for the APVA Awards 2024, or APVA Awards 2024, and we have been selected in both the relationship category and the comedy category for podcasts. And while I am super pumped that we have been recognized by a regional body, it does still mean that there is some voting that needs to happen, so I am going to include the details in the description below for this episode, as well as a bunch of others, and also on social media. So if you'd like to vote, then I will have the details and how to do it in the description below, as well as my many social media channels, so that you can throw some love and show some appreciation for your boy and the podcast that's been running for a bunch of years. Busy trying to feed you guys certain amount of entertainment and a certain amount of relationship talk. Now, with that said, I do need to get back to the relationship talk. And speaking of relationships, there's this thing that I once heard way back in the day where women were busy talking about how guys always have this thing where they will want you as a friend, they'll have you chill with the homies and they'll let you get close, but it's like they never usually cuff the babes that are usually like tight friends or spend a lot of time with them and the homies. And they always found that to be a little bit weird. Why is it that you guys don't date the women that you interact with, that you relate with, that you spend so much time with? And while guys usually try to explain it to the women, it doesn't usually seem like it's that easy to understand, because if these women are the ones that are spending so much time with you, then why the hell not be with them? They clearly understand you better than the random stranger that you're going to meet, right? And considering that we're guys and there's a way that us guys can explain it, it might not come out as well, which is why when I found a clip on IG of a woman busy talking about her having relations with the boys but dating one of the guys that was in that squad, and her experience and whether she respects him or not, it definitely did kind of bring out what it is that I'd have wanted to say about the entire thing, but in a way that would probably make a lot more sense to the women, especially considering that it's a woman who is giving this sort of information. So I'm just gonna let the clip play for a little bit, then I can get into my thoughts on it. So without further ado,
I smashed the homies. And that's just the truth. He seen what it was and he still decided to mess with me. So that's your decision.
That wasn't
You can't mess. You can't. Listen, everybody have a past.
We all have a
He was
past.
there because we're all friends. So you seen what I did. You chose to still with
He
me.
seen what you did? 4 of them hit before 1 of them cuffed.
Yes.
Basically.
And he knows that all 4 of them hit.
I would never lie. Okay? I'm gonna be honest. A lot of people like to get on the mic and la and try to act like they something. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, okay? Y'all can learn from my mistakes.
But she's not the same
I made
person.
a lot of mistakes.
Right.
But
Five.
it made me who I am today.
Knowing that he knows what he knows and accepted what he accepted, et cetera, can you respect him as a husband?
I would say 50-50, like I said, because there's a part of me that does respect him, and there's a part of me that didn't respect him. I would say didn't respect him because I didn't. I would talk to him crazy. I would treat him, crazy and stuff like that. But because the more I've grown and the more our relationship has got better and the more he's grown and become a better person and vice versa, it's made me respect him a lot more. So now he's starting to have boundaries and he's starting to have respect for himself and he's starting to be like, oh, I'm not dealing with that. You're not going to come around with that. So now I'm like, okay, you got it. So it's making me respect him more because he's starting to have confidence and high self-esteem in himself. Like I said, we trauma bond.
Okay, so I hope this clip at least gives some insight into what it's like dating a babe who has had experience with the homies, or at least is pretty close with the homies. Now, of course, it's not like every babe that is close to the homies has smashed them, and this is more of an extreme example, but there are things that she pointed out which make a shit ton of sense, especially from a guy's perspective, knowing the kind of treatment that babes get and give whenever they're around a group of dudes. Now, of course, first of all, there's a dude who might be listening who's like, that guy ended up taking the biggest L because it's like he decided to date the babe that's been passed around by the squad. And, you can definitely say that, and granted, especially the part where it's like, she didn't respect him at first up until the guy started having boundaries and upped his confidence and shit, and that makes sense. But beyond that, just to put it simply, there's a certain respect that your female friend that's sort of like your boy usually doesn't give you when you guys are friends that you'd expect your partner to give you when you're in a relationship. And I know there's someone who's gonna be like, oh, I dated my best friend, whatever the hell you're saying is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And, that kind of makes sense to a degree, but when it comes to chilling with the boys, there's a certain sort of behavior, there's a certain sort of treatment that guys give each other that seems disrespectful, that seems like we don't care or respect each other, that women may not necessarily get. There's a certain way that us guys will relate with each other that I wouldn't want to relate with my partner on, but I'm comfortable doing with my homies. So you find that a babe who's so in tune with the boys, it's like, yes, she might be pretty, yes, she might have a great body and might seem gorgeous and she might be a nice babe, but the moment you decide to date her, there's that sort of lack of respect that she'll have for you that you just won't be comfortable with because you have certain boundaries when you're in a relationship versus boundaries in a friendship. So for the few guys like this woman's boyfriend that tried to make it work, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle and there's going to be a lot of grinding of gears. But for the most part, we'd much rather skip that and just find someone that we can get to know from scratch instead of trying to pick from the squad and possibly risk either breaking the squad or just being treated in a not so nice way as guys. Although, then again, I could be wrong about any of this shit. Either way, I do have tweets that I am supposed to be talking about, so I will move things on to the tweets and get to our very first tweet of this episode, which was posted up by a woman who said, and I quote, "Men at our workplace today had a very funny discussion. They were saying that you will notice that even though beer is sold at almost half price in the barracks, members of the disciplined force don't have pot bellies, many of them, if not all. But members of the other force whose duties include leaning on matatus and greeting drivers, aka traffic police, who buy beer at market price, have pot bellies. This confirms that beer doesn't make drunkards grow pot bellies. Pot bellies are as a result of being fed on bad food cooked by angry wives." End quote. Okay, now, can I say that I agree with this? not exactly. Actually, the research is kind of against it, but considering that I've seen how big some of their bellies are, it could be true to some degree, but honestly, it does kind of open up the door to look into how our relationships with women as guys kind of affect our bodies and how our bodies look, because it is something that I think either should be studied if it hasn't really been studied that well before. Because at least from the experiences that I've seen with a lot of different guys, interestingly enough, like the pot belly, or at least the flabbiness and the rounded belly, usually comes after you're in a relationship or after you get married to a babe. And it's like people, at least in this part of the world, usually talk about the fact that it's because you're being fed well. Now, of course, it is something that is quite questionable, because when you kind of think about it, it's not like every single bachelor underfeeds themselves or feeds on junk food. But then you find that because a babe has been feeding them pretty well, they tend to get a little bit flabby around the sides. But now that kind of feeds into something that I feel actually is something that women do on a subconscious level, where it's like they start to mold this guy into a quote-unquote less attractive version of themselves so that they can deter other women from trying to make a move on dude. Because when a babe manages to secure a dude, you actually see women being possessive in different ways, from logging and monitoring the moves that this guy makes throughout the day, to also deterring certain women from approaching the guy or telling the guy that he shouldn't be interacting with certain women. Like, you find that women do tend to be possessive to some degree. And this could be another one of the many ways that women can be using a certain tactic to get the guy to seem less attractive to other women, so that it's not like she has to compete against other women after she's already gotten the guy to commit to her. So, getting him to a point where it's like he has a flabby stomach is a pretty good idea of getting the guy to not seem as attractive. And when you kind of think about it, and this is something that you notice if you're a guy that goes and works out a lot. And, for the guys that usually go to the gym very frequently, you're the ones that can probably tell me this. Like, you find that the moment you're with a babe and you used to go to the gym and shit, it's like the moment that now y'all are dating and shit, or you guys are spending a lot more time together, or you go to the gym, it's like she'll want to eat into the gym time a little bit more. If you go to the gym in the morning, she'll be like, let's stay in bed today. You don't have to go every single day. You still look great. You don't have to go to the gym all the time. It's like you start being deterred from going to the gym a little bit more. And if you're the type of person to accept, you'll notice that it's like you're going to the gym a little bit less. So over time, you just end up, not unless if you like sort of catch wind of the entire thing and you decide to take yourself to the gym every single time, like you'll just get to a point where it's like you'll notice that your attendance of the gym is very inconsistent. And you kind of think about it, that does work as a tactic, because flabbier guys are supposedly supposed to be less attractive to women. But that's not exactly the case. Actually, research suggests that if you're a bit of a flabby guy with a bit of muscle, you're actually more attractive to women, because they consider you to be slightly less attractive, so they'll have less competition to deal with, which means that you'd probably make for a better mate. And the problem is, because one woman thinks that, and let's say that's your girlfriend, and a bunch of other women think that, and they're not your girlfriend, it's like they think that you're going to have less attention from women, so you end up having more attention from women because they think that you're getting less attention from other women. It's a bit of an ironic situation, but it does actually happen. So you find that those guys that are a little flabbier, that you wouldn't expect to be attracting a lot of women, are the ones that are attracting the most women. So it is a pretty interesting phenomenon. But all in all, back to what the original tweet was saying, could it be caused by angry wives? No. It's just the fact that these guys don't do as much movement, aren't as disciplined, and eat too much food. But, then again, I could be wrong about this, and maybe they just have angry wives, so I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our next tweet of this episode. So this was actually a confession by a sugar mummy, and it was posted up on Twitter. I can't see what app it came from, but it is a bit of a long story, so I am going to read it. So this woman says, and I quote, I'm currently 34 years old and having an affair with this 19-year-old boy. The boy is naive and claims he is so much in love with me. He literally cries when I tell him not to come any closer to me. When he does something wrong and I say we are over, he would do anything to make me happy. I love his energy. In fact, he reminds me of my first time being in love. The guy was equally crazy about me and we did a lot of silly things together. His energy makes me feel young and loved. This guy has my back anytime. He doesn't have money, but whatever he has, he makes sure he uses it to make me feel loved. He would go any lengths to make me happy, and trust me, the sex is good. He's a fast learner and I am very comfortable when we are making out because I am able to control him. He does anything I ask him to, so I enjoy him. Unlike these adults who want things their way and are always eager to ejaculate, this guy even licks my anus and armpit. He takes good care of me. I love him too. I just don't make him see it that much, else he will start fooling. He wants to move in with me and make me carry his baby. He isn't working. In fact, he's yet to enter the university and I will take full responsibility of his education and anything else that concerns him. I really am done with these grown men. I want to maintain this guy. I'm not taking care of him because I want anything from him. I just want to make his life better. I'm also scared that he would one day see me as an old cargo. I really want to carry his baby. I'm ready to keep our relationship secret or open anyhow he wants it. I really have plans of submitting to him one day because I know once he starts school, he's going to change and start thinking differently. I'm also growing and money won't take care of me in old age. People will. So how do I go about this? How do I make him focus on me and his child, provided I agree to carry his child? Won't he leave me one day for someone younger and abandon me with his child? I would keep and love my child regardless, but I really just want to keep this guy. I want to groom him into a responsible, wealthy man who loves and cherishes his child, and would be proud to have me as his beloved. I want to make him my man because despite everything, he would soon grow and would learn to handle himself and his emotions. He would soon want to take control of this relationship and I can't start showing him how crazy I am about him. I'm not taking advantage of him. I love him and want to build him. I am equally scared that I may lose him one day. Kindly let your audience advise me. What can I do to make him look my way and maintain this energy and love he claims to have for me till death do us part? Advise a confused sister. End quote. Okay, first of all, I will tell you for a fact, I don't think you're a confused sister, you're a crazy one. Now, of course, it's not like this was sent directly to me. Otherwise, I'd have told this woman, release the man. How is it that you are saying that you want to groom the boy? You do know grooming is something that is usually talked about whenever people are discussing shit like pedophilia and all. How is it that you're saying that you want to groom the boy? I don't know. Maybe it's just a vocabulary thing, but hey. Anyways, granted, the both of them are above the age of 18. Yes, is it weird that she's messing around with someone that is technically almost half her age? You could say so, but that's not even what I really want to talk about. That's the whole age thing with the adults and all, and I don't even consider that to be the biggest issue out of all of this. I think the fact that this woman is playing a full-on manipulation game on dude is the thing that bothers me quite a bit. Now, I can get the guy. He's 19 years old and the guy got sucked into the male fantasy, and a babe that could fulfill the male fantasy definitely wanted him, and it's something that he is fully into, and he's probably a romantic and he's sticking there. That makes sense. I can get it. And all of that shit is totally understandable because, I was also a 19-year-old guy and I wanted a MILF at some point. It's just that I never really got one. But with that said, I'm thinking about it. This woman does not want to let this young man leave, or does not want to let this young man be, whether it's with her or without her, because the unconditional love of young people is something that she yearns for, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to hold on to dude. I've probably said this before on the podcast, but one of the best kinds of love is the love that you get when you're in your late teens and your early 20s, before adulting hits you and a bunch of bills and shit comes. Because when you like someone, say for a couple of outlier situations, like you really like them for them. It's near unconditional love. It's the most unconditional version of love that you can probably get, which is why when you find people who've been dating for multiple years since the teens or since the early 20s are getting married, even while they're still in their early 20s, you know that relationship is most probably going to last a hell of a lot longer than the people who try getting married or try settling down in like their mid to late 20s or even their 30s and 40s. Because for the most part, like that love, that affection, that relationship came from something that was very innate and mostly unconditional. The one that comes, in your mid to late 20s, 30s and 40s and shit, there's added incentive in there. There's the conditionality of, do they satisfy this sort of value set and KPIs that I usually have, which this woman has clearly seen a lot of grown men have. And because she knows that this guy is still in that unconditional love phase, she's going to capitalize on as much of it as possible by ensuring that this guy sticks to her, and she's willing to use, separation anxiety and love bombing so that she can ensure that this guy sort of sticks with her and shit. And the dude does not know it. Dude is practically falling for the entire thing. So like, even though the babe says that she loves this guy a lot, you're like, is it really love or is it obsession at this point? Because on one end, you're like, I see potential in him, I want to have a future with him, and I'm willing to pay for blah, blah, blah. But on the other end, you're like, I don't want this guy to start interacting with younger women because suddenly he won't want to be with me. And sometimes we're arguing and I threaten to leave him so that he can suddenly profess his love for me and say that he doesn't want the relationship to end. Like, how is it that you're playing this sort of manipulation game and you're saying that you're in love with this person? Because normally, when you are actually in love with someone, you wouldn't want to go through all of that. You'd appreciate the reciprocation and, you'd want them to be the best selves, but it's not like you'd want to hold them back from becoming their best selves. So, I don't know. In this particular case, if I was going to give an unbiased opinion on this, I'd probably say that the love that he has for you will probably really be tested once he goes to university, because at that point in time, he'll probably know for sure if he actually loves you or if it was just a fantasy he was fulfilling. And also for you as a person, the older lady, I mean, if you really want to know if this guy wants to be with you, then the best way to know for sure is to just let him go and do his thing. Stop trying to control dude. Stop trying to play these manipulation games so that you can have him stick to you. Otherwise, he's going to learn about it, because this guy is going to have anywhere in the region to like 10 to 15, maybe 16 years from now to figure out that you were playing manipulation games on him so that he could stick to you. And from that point, like, dude will still be very ripe in the market to go for a younger babe and drop you like a bad habit. So you might as well get done with the problem early enough as opposed to later, where it's going to be harder for you to get back into the dating market as opposed to him. Although granted, considering that the guy is 19 years old and I may be a bit of a romantic, maybe my thoughts on this entire thing might not entirely be objective. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. On Facebook and on IG, it is at the Breaktime Podcast and the Breaktime_podcast respectively. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end. If you do want to hit me up directly without going through socials, there is the link at the top of the description. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.